Imagine for a second that you are uh, a high-performance sports car. You got this massive engine. You're built for speed, incredible potential.
Right.
But every time you pull into a gas station, you're forced to fill up with diesel instead of premium unleaded.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
You run, sure, but you sputter, you stall, and you just feel this constant mechanical grinding in the gears.
That is such a visceral image. It really captures that feeling of being high capacity, but completely out of sync with your environment.
And for the subject of today's deep dive, that wasn't just a metaphor. It was his daily reality. For decades, we're looking at a really fascinating case study of a professional who spent years in this grueling cycle. He'd land these high-profile roles because he's clearly brilliant.
Of course.
But then he just hit a wall. He describes it as a cycle of being hired, struggling with this vague discomfort, and then eventually getting a formal request to resign.
Which is just the polite corporate way of saying you're fired.
Right. And he went through this loop, company after company. But here's the twist. He didn't figure out what was wrong until he was 49 years old.
49.
He went for an evaluation and got a dual diagnosis, ASD, Autism Spectrum Disorder, and ADHD.
Now, for a lot of people, a diagnosis like that at nearly 50 might feel like a verdict, a confirmation of limitation.
Yeah, like the end of the story.
Exactly. But what's so fascinating here is that he didn't see it as a tragedy at all. He treated it like he had finally been given the user manual for his own brain.
He calls it a strategic map. And that's really what we're unpacking today. This isn't just a story about neurodiversity. It's a masterclass in what he calls career engineering.
Yes.
He basically hacked the corporate system to build a fortress around his very specific brain wiring.
Exactly. And, whether you're neurodivergent yourself or you just feel stifled by those traditional corporate structures, there is a blueprint here. It's about how to stop fighting a system that wasn't built for you and start leveraging it on your own terms.
So let's get into the mechanics of this. The first hurdle he identifies is the one that stops so many people before they even start.
The job interview.
The job interview,
Yeah.
the gatekeeper. He calls it the interview gap. But he describes this phenomenon that, I hadn't heard phrased this way before. He calls it the hearing version of dyslexia.
That's a critical distinction to make, isn't it? When we think of dyslexia, we think of visual scrambling, words on a page.
Right.
But he's talking about auditory processing in a high-pressure situation. So in a standard interview, a recruiter asks a question, and they're looking for point A, a linear, direct answer.
Tell us about a time you solved a problem. Simple enough, right?
For a neurotypical brain, yeah. But for his specific profile, hearing that question triggers this massive, explosive web of associations.
So instead of a straight line, it's a spider web.
Precisely. The interviewer asks for A, and his brain instantly generates A+, and B, and C, and also D. To him, that feels comprehensive. It's thorough.
He's giving them the full picture.
But to the recruiter sitting across the table, it just looks like a lack of focus. It looks like he can't answer a simple question.
Even though, as he notes, he was often praised for how he could articulate complex ideas in writing. But in that real-time verbal back and forth, he just misinterpreted the intent behind the questions.
He mentions his responses would be off-target. And in the corporate world, if you miss the target in the interview, you're labeled incompetent. He uses a Japanese term for it, pankotsu.
Pankotsu, what does that mean exactly?
It's a little nuanced, but it basically implies being clumsy or unreliable or kind of a useless object, like a broken radio.
Oh.
So you have this person who is actually highly intelligent, but he literally cannot pass the entrance exam because the exam tests for social mirroring and linear verbal processing, not actual skill.
So the logical response for most people would be, okay, I need to get better at interviews.
Right.
Hire a coach, practice your STAR method answers.
That is the standard advice. But he did the opposite. He came to this really radical conclusion. He said, I can never win the interview game.
So he stopped playing.
He stopped playing entirely. He stopped seeking traditional full-time employment. Full stop.
Which sounds great in theory, but that is a terrifying financial cliff to just jump off of. How do you pay the bills if you opt out of the job market?
And this leads us to his financial framework, which I think is just pure genius in its simplicity. He calls it the 4x25 rule.
Okay, break that down for us.
Okay, so think about the standard goal for a successful professional. It's the 100 milestone. Landing a single full-time job that pays 100, whether that's $100,000 or 10 million yen, The unit doesn't really matter.
Right, the golden ticket. One job, one salary, all the benefits.
But to get that ticket, you have to pass that interview gatekeeper we just talked about.
Yeah.
And you have to survive all the HR filters that prioritize culture fit over raw skills. It's a really high-friction path.
So instead of hunting for one big whale, he hunts for 4 smaller fish.
Exactly. He aims for 4 separate service contracts, each worth about 25. Mathematically, 4 times 25 is the same 100 income, but structurally, it is a completely different world.
And I'm guessing getting a contract for 25 is easier than a full-time role for 100.
Oh, exponentially easier. This is what he calls low-friction approval. A middle manager often has a discretionary budget for contractors or external services.
Oh, okay.
They don't need to go through 3 rounds of HR interviews or get VP approval to spend that smaller amount.
It just flies under the radar.
And there are these invisible costs that make companies love this. When you hire a full-time employee, you're not just paying salary. You're paying for insurance, Social Security, office space, a laptop.
And you're taking on long-term liability.
A huge liability.
Right.
Firing an employee is a legal nightmare, especially in a country with strong labor laws like Japan.
Oh, with a contractor.
You're paying for output. If it doesn't work out, you just cancel the contract. No hard feelings. He positioned himself as a low-risk, high-value asset. He bypassed the bureaucracy just by changing the nature of the transaction.
There's another layer to this, though, right? Specifically for the ADHD brain. It wasn't just about the money or the hiring process. It was about the kind of work.
The novelty factor. This is so crucial. A defining trait of many ADHD brains is that boredom isn't just annoying. It's like kryptonite. It can cause physical distress. A single stagnant role where you do the same thing every day leads to what he calls performance collapse.
I think a lot of people feel that slump, but for him, it sounds like a complete system failure.
It is, but by balancing 4 distinct projects, he creates artificial novelty. When he gets bored with client A, he can just switch to client B.
Oh, that's smart.
That freshness keeps his brain in hyper-focus mode. He's essentially hacking his own dopamine system to stay productive.
Okay, so he's got the money sorted out, he's bypassed the interview, but now he actually has to do the work. And if he struggled in traditional jobs before, wouldn't those same struggles, the missed deadlines, the pankotsi moments, just pop up in these contracts too?
That is the million-dollar question. And the answer is yes, unless you redefine the work itself. Which brings us to his concept of the acreage of excellence.
Acreage of excellence. It sounds very dignified, but what does it actually mean in practice?
It's about abandoning the broad, generic job description. You know those JDs that say you need to be good at strategy and execution and administration and people skills?
The unicorn employee. Yeah.
Right. And he stopped trying to be the unicorn. He focuses on, quote, partially delivering value. He identifies the narrow sliver of work where he is absolutely, undeniably world-class.
He gives a great example of this with sales. He admits very openly that he is a terrible closer.
Which, for a consultant, that sounds like a death sentence. You eat what you kill, right?
Exactly. He struggles with the standard sales cycle.
Hmm?
But he knows he is a master conflict finisher.
That distinction is so sharp. He might not be the guy who gets the initial signature on a contract,
Right.
but imagine you have a client who's furious. They've lost all trust in your brand. The project is on fire. The whole room is tense.
That's his arena. He's the firefighter.
That's it. He steps in and rebuilds the relationship from the ground up. He identified that specific acreage where his intensity and his pattern recognition are assets, not liabilities.
But knowing your strengths isn't enough if your weaknesses keep tripping you up. He still has executive dysfunction. He still forgets administrative tasks. So how does he handle that?
This is where his support system comes in. And he doesn't just ask for this support. He makes it a non-negotiable condition for taking any contract. He calls them his filters.
What are the filters?
Okay, the first is text-based communication. Because of his auditory processing gaps, that hearing dyslexia, he needs instructions in email or chat.
If it's just spoken in a meeting, it doesn't count.
To him, it might as well not exist. So that's number 1. The second one, though, the parallel partner, that one really stood out to me.
It sounds expensive for a client to agree to.
It's a very specific ask. And notice, he doesn't say assistant. An assistant is usually someone junior who you have to tell what to do.
Right, you have to manage an assistant.
Exactly. And for a brain that struggles with executive function planning, organizing, initiating, if he has to manage an assistant, that's just more executive load.
So the parallel partner is different.
It's a colleague at the same level, They run alongside the project. Their job is to catch the balls he drops, the administrative details, the scheduling, the follow-ups.
And critically, they have to practice proactive check-ins. Why proactive?
Because he won't ask for help. He says it himself. His reluctance to ask for help is a huge barrier. So the partner can't wait for him to flag an issue.
They have to poke him.
They have to poke him. Hey, did you send that invoice? Hey, is that report ready? They're acting as his external executive function.
It's amazing how he systematized what most people just try to, willpower their way through. But there's a risk here.
Huge risk.
To set this all up, you have to be really, really honest with your clients. You have to tell them, I'm great at X, but I will fail at Y. He calls it radical transparency.
He does. He tells them about his diagnosis. He shows them his pankotsu gaps right up front.
That feels incredibly risky. I mean, we're all taught to hide our weaknesses. Fake it till you make it.
It is risky, but he argues that by disclosing, he uses it as a filter. If he stops masking, he stops attracting employers who expect a standard neurotypical employee.
And he starts attracting the ones who only care about the high-level value he produces, that conflict finisher magic.
Right, but he does warn us about the C-level risk. He seems pretty cynical about leadership's ability to actually handle this.
He talks about the kind leader.
The leader who nods and says, oh yes, we support neurodiversity. But the moment a deadline is missed or a routine task is forgotten,
the pankotsu moment.
That same leader reverts to, why can't you just try harder?
That phrase, just try harder. It completely denies the reality of the condition.
Exactly. And his mantra here is brutal, but it's necessary. Society is built on a neurotypical starting point. If you feel you aren't accepted, there is only one action. Leave.
Don't fight for acceptance.
Don't beg for it. It preserves your sanity. And that leads to his ultimate safety net, the structure that lets him leave without his life falling apart. He calls it the one-person fortress.
He incorporated himself.
Yeah.
He built a personal legal entity. Now, usually people do this for tax benefits or to look professional, but he says he did it to protect himself against the ADHD tax.
And this is very specific to the administrative burden of life. In Japan, where he is, missing a social insurance payment by a single day can mean you lose your coverage.
Wow.
For someone with executive dysfunction, remembering to pay a manual bill on the 25th of every month is a high-risk activity.
It's a systemic risk. One slip memory and your family could lose health coverage.
So the corporation centralizes all of it. The corporation handles the insurance, the taxes, the contracts. It is a consistent administrative foundation that exists no matter which client he's working for.
I love the quote he had about this. He said, "This corporation is the one and only company that will accept you until the day you die."
It's quite moving, isn't it? It's an acknowledgement that he can't rely on an external employer to care for him forever. So he built a structure specifically designed to accept his own poor future estimation. He knows he's going to mess up admin tasks, so he built a castle that accounts for it.
It's taking control in the most absolute sense. He went from waiting for a performance review, which he calls a public execution,
What a term.
to building a machine that serves him.
And that transition from public execution to strength maker really is the core takeaway. For years, the performance review was just a list of his failures. You're too scattered, you're too blunt, you don't follow the process.
Which is basically shaming him for how his brain is wired.
But by flipping the model, by selling his acreage of excellence directly to the market with these 4 contracts, he earns the highest income of his entire life.
He didn't fix his broken parts.
He just stopped selling them.
That is such a powerful reframing. He stopped selling the broken parts. And I should also mention, he didn't just bootstrap this from nothing. He used government tools.
Correct. He specifically mentions using the self-support medical care system and getting a grade 3 disability handbook.
And I feel like there's often a stigma about using those resources, like it's admitting defeat or something.
He reframes them completely. They aren't signs of defeat. They are government-backed hacks. They're tools to level the playing field. If the system offers you a shield, you take it. It's part of the fortress.
So to recap the blueprint, we have the interview solution, which is don't interview, the financial solution, the 4 contracts, the work solution, acreage of excellence and parallel partners, and the safety solution, the one-person corporation.
It's a complete ecosystem.
It really is. It's not just tips for ADHD. It's a total reimagining of what a career can even look like.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it challenges the whole idea of the job as we know it. We are moving into an economy that is more fragmented, more project-based.
That's a really interesting point.
In a way, His neurodivergent survival strategy is actually a preview of the future of work for everyone.
So maybe the corporate fortress strategy isn't just for the neurodivergent. Maybe it's just the smarter way to work, period. Prioritizing output over office politics.
And prioritizing autonomy over dependence.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? Maybe you don't have an ADHD diagnosis. Maybe you're just feeling that vague discomfort we talked about at the start.
The question the author leaves us with is a really powerful one. He asks, if you stop trying to fix your broken parts, the things you are bad at, the things that drain all your energy, and instead built a fortress around your strengths, what could your career look like by this time next year?
Instead of making a New Year's resolution to get better at the things you hate, what if you just made a plan to stop doing them entirely?
It takes courage. It requires, as he said, leaving the places that demand you be someone else. But the payoff is a life that runs on the right fuel.
A high-performance engine finally getting the premium gas it deserves.
Indeed.
Well, that is all the time we have for this deep dive. A huge thank you to the author for sharing such a transparent and tactical roadmap. We hope this helps you build your own fortress, whatever that looks like for you.
Keep building.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you on the next one.